truth. And tomorrow, I love what I am reading and seeing up on the Facebook with the question of what do you love most about America? Elaine writes, freedom. Jeff, apple pie and my mama. Bless you, Jeff. That's awesome. Why are you talking like Brett Michaels? Always using awesome? I don't know. I think I've seen that show. But sincerely, great answers. Love them. Keep them coming. And then you can tell there's going to be a question up there on how you're celebrating it. What is your tradition, if you will? I hope you will. It's great. Let's get to the discussion of our Second Amendment rights and how CNN, do you think they're dedicated to gun control? I think they've made the decision, kind of like how the mainstream media made the decision that George Zimmerman was white and a racist, and it had nothing to do with self-defense and his head being smacked down on the concrete like a melon. And that's why he defended himself. Yeah, I think they have made the decision. Oh, Jim Hoff will be with us, and he'll bring us the update on the George Zimmerman trial. I want to say this every time I mention George Zimmerman. Want to make sure that don't buy the hype of the racial. There may be a few thugs out there doing it, and I believe in self-defense, absolutely. But this is not a color issue. This is an issue of demagoguery, exploitation, dishonesty, and people being stuck on stupid. Willingly, there's willful blindness and then there's willful stupidity. Recognize that God made us unique, knew us in our womb, mother's womb, red blood, and don't spend your life being a color. Okay? Yeah. Just something to think about. We'll get to that discussion later. I want to get to this. Pardon the digression. Let's keep moving and go to the Second Amendment. Morgan Spurlock is doing a show, Inside Man, I believe, on CNN. Newsbusters got a clip of the show. And, yeah, Supersize Me? Yeah, okay. One time, I have to say this. In relation to how we deal with being victims of everything, it seems, and not really going to any personal responsibility, I can apply that to the Second Amendment. I could also do it with attacks on fast food restaurants. One day what they're going to say is, you know what? They were enticing you too much, and they were putting things in their food that made it too good. So those healthcare costs, we're going to cause McDonald's to pay for them, and those candy bar manufacturers. It's going to say, warning, eat 12 of these every day. You're going to end up being 300 pounds and probably have a heart problem. Or if you do nothing but eat McDonald's over and over again, you may have some health issues in the sense of overeating and not getting enough certain parts of your diet. I think you do that with anything, quite frankly. Believer in personal responsibility, stop the victimhood. Yes, I struggled with weight loss. I've done it. I think everybody struggles with it as we get older too. So that's not about sympathy toward folks who are dealing with that. Second Amendment, Morgan Spurlock, talking about the misrepresentation of the gun control argument. Now, as supporters of the Second Amendment, you know it was misrepresented, but he's saying it went the other way. Roll it.
Completely blown away by the response that people have had to Newtown. That on the heels of a tragedy like this, that they feel that they have to arm themselves.
The gun lobby and its allies willfully lied about the bill.
They launched a misinformation campaign to derail any legislation by willfully misleading their members into thinking a national gun registry was possible, even though it was against the law.
You know, the majority of the population is for universal background checks. Do we need 120-round magazines for target practice, an AR-15 for home protection? Actually, no. So, you know, at some point we have to say,
Korean shop
we
owners
should do what's right, you know, rather than just what's easy.
Rather than what's easy. We got to do what's hard. It's always, we got to do what's hard rather than what's easy and everything. And easy means more government restrictions, ignoring what the Second Amendment outlined, and not recognizing the power of incrementalism, like what they did with the Affordable Care Act, because it is the step to the single payer, which President Obama outlined in 2003. So this is not rocket science. By the way, the charge that conservatives misled people about the gun registry, no, they just made the case that this would lead to a national gun registry, like Ted Cruz did. Here's an excerpt of his discussion and questioning from Senator Schumer at the time. Roll it.
If this body did that, I believe it would put us inexorably on the path to a national gun registry. And the reason is simple. Because by extending background checks to private transactions, the Department of Justice has been very candid about this. The Deputy Director of the National Institute of Justice explained that universal background checks, with respect to them, quote, effectiveness depends on requiring gun registration.
Isn't it the case that the very background check proposed in Toomey, mentioned Toomey, is the same one that's been used for 17 years for FFLs, for federal firearm licensees? Isn't it the exact same one?
What is not the exact same is extending it to a private individual selling to another private individual.
But it's the same technique. It's the same entry into the book and everything else.
But what is consequential is extending it to private sellers, not licensed dealers, because the argument surely would be, if this bill passed, the argument would immediately become, well, it can't possibly be effective because we don't know who owns those firearms.
Ted Cruz is a gift to conservatism. That's not about support for an R or D. That's just reality, and that's why he's been demonized so much. He is a threat to the establishment, moderate, so-called conservative part of the Republican Party. Well, I don't know if they consider themselves that. That's okay, though. I mean, they can believe what they want to believe. I'm not hating. I'm just saying that what's happened to him is they're trying to Tea Party him. And why did they try to Tea Party everybody? Tea Party demonized to the point where you call them all sorts of names and try to marginalize them and say they're the problem when they're the force, when they're the substance, when they're bringing things back under control, making arguments for constitutional government and governance. And there's a $16.9 trillion debt, and people are sitting there going, oh, okay, yeah, the Tea Party who wants to address that, they're the problem. Yeah, that's it. What? What's going on? I mean, is there smoke in the chamber? Are they hopped up on something to have that? No, that's how the mainstream media works, because that's how you deal with substance. You must demonize. You must call them names falsely because your agenda is failure. That's the bottom line. Easy, Stone Cold. Speaking of the Smackdown, when somebody confronts somebody that's been smearing them, this is what I love about debates and why we need more of them, not because of the rancor, but because people have an opportunity to address each other as candidates or as representatives. And that's exactly what we saw here with Pamela Geller, who drew the line between civilized society and terrorists and jihadists and made posters to that effect. And she was blamed for a murder by the guest that you will hear. Here is part of that exchange where she got her opportunity to address this person that said she was responsible. And the number happens to be number 16. Number 16. Do we have it? Okay, because I threw that at you. I jumped at it. Here it is. Roll it.
I'm not accusing her.
Yes, you
Her
did.
posters caused danger to the people traveling in subway train. And in fact, there was a guy who got killed
Mr. Gauss,
for mistaken identity.
My ad said nothing about Muslims. My ad said nothing about Islam. My ad said in any war between the civilized man and the savage, you support the civilized man. Defeat jihad. Support Israel. Are you supporting jihad? Is that what you're saying?
Pamela, I'm not supporting jihad. Nobody's supporting.
So we're in agreement.
But
So
there
you owe
was
me an
a clever
apology.
way of saying, you mean, no, I don't owe an apology to you. You owe an apology to to the people who you are hurting and saying bad things about it.
So now you're saying
owe
that
an
truth.
apology
You're
to them,
saying the
not
truth.
me.
You're saying the truth hurts people. Do you see how irrational your logic is?
Truth doesn't hurt people.
Yeah. Yes.
Truth doesn't hurt people.
If you don't
Clever
support
ads
jihad,
do
then you
hurt
support.
people.
If you don't support jihad, then you support my ads. That's it, plain and simple. There was no Islam in my ads, and there was no Muslim in my ads.
The world is not black and white, Pamela.
What does that mean?
The world is not black
what does
and
that
white.
mean?
That
Answer
is
the
too
question.
simplistic
Answer the
attitude.
question.
You
said
can't
you
be
didn't
that
support
simplistic.
jihad. How dare you accuse
cannot
me?
be simplistic,
How dare you accuse
Pamela.
me of murder? And yet you don't bring up the fact that a devout
I didn't
Muslim
accuse you
threw
of
somebody
murder.
off the subway train. You didn't bring that up.
One question for you before we go to the top of the hour news with Chris Woodward, and I believe he's anchoring tonight. It might be Chad Groening and Becky Ye and the crew, Charlie Butts. Just great American family is one thing I had to say, and it's this. Do you smell what the Geller is cooking? you should owe an apology to that person. What, the jihadist? Is that it's not black and white? Yeah, it is. When you're cutting off people's heads and blowing up innocents in the name of Allah, yeah, it is black and white. See, that's the problem. We've gotten to the point where we don't have absolute truth anymore. All cultures are just wonderful, aren't they? No, they're not. A Judeo-Christian culture, its foundation is superior for the reason of freedom and recognition of God. And there are so many reasons. But there's a reason people aren't breaking into Iran, okay? Trying to get in, okay? Reason for that. Speaking of the Mideast, Egypt, Ryan Morrow, next. AFR Talk.